It's not something I'd have to read. It's just more of a.
You shouldn't have to live like that. You shouldn't feel powerless over your money. You don't have to. You can take control of your money. You just need the right plan. And Financial Peace University is that plan. It's a step-by-step class that will show you how to pay off debt, create a budget, make wise spending decisions, and save and invest for your future. In fact, the average family pays off $53 in debt and saves $2,700 in the first 90 days. That's an $8,000.
No, that's my phone.
This is so much more than a money class.
Yep, we look good.
Almost 5 million people change their lives. And now is the perfect time to take control of your money. Get started with Financial Peace University by visiting DaveRamsey.com or calling us at 888-22-PEACE, 888-227-3223.
We get one life, one chance.
I just brought this thing in late, and I got it, and I just didn't pick it up till
Legacy
today.
Journey class will teach you how to invest wisely to grow your money, how to plan for retirement, and how to train your kids to handle wealth. It's never too early or too late to plan for the future. And now's the time to safeguard your family and
mine hasn't popped up yet.
The Legacy Journey will teach you how to walk this thing out step by step right now, so that you're living the legacy you want for your family. To leave a legacy, we have to live one now.
Chris.
Get intentional. We'll walk you through all those important things.
Maybe it's me watching.
You can leave an inheritance behind and pass on your values.
We're watching ourselves.
Start living with purpose. Take your first steps in that direction with the Legacy Journey class. There are classes starting from coast to coast all the time. Find the class nearest you. Live well. Finish well.
See the new Veterans Memorial on King Street?
Yeah.
I've seen Chet posted on Facebook.
Is that what they were building?
Yeah.
Right next to the coffee place?
Is that your volume or mine?
Yours.
Is there a coffee place right there?
The parking lot, right?
Yeah, that parking lot right in the center. Yeah, King Street.
Really? That's a
Veterans Memorial, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. That's right, you're a veteran.
But then there are other collectors that are just plain crooks. These are the guys who take it a step further and they violate the federal.
They had a couple different. It's got each branch of the military. It's pretty neat.
Clemens made that. I forgot his first name, but he goes to church with us now. He goes to church with us. We've had guys work at his machine shop.
That'd be cool. I know, right?
Calling you multiple times a day, calling you at work after you've asked them not to.
All right, cool. You boys have a good show, man.
All right, Justin. Good to see you, brother.
Good seeing you. Good seeing you.
Amen.
Yeah. I'll be in my office when you guys get off.
Okay.
Just for safety reasons, because I'm not trying to mess with, I'm not sure how to exactly route it to the board yet. It'll probably take like 5 more minutes. So after the show, I'll just play with it, and when I get it, I'll shoot you a text.
Sweet.
Do you find yourself scraping by until that last Friday praying nothing goes wrong? You don't have to live like that. Now's the perfect time to take control and start living smart with your money. You can do it. You just need a plan. And Financial Peace University is that plan. Whether you take the class with others at a location near you or take it online from home, you can change your future starting now. Financial Peace University offers practical steps to lead you out of debt and stress. And
I won't have as many viewers today because everybody's recovering from the
We have
4th.
classes starting all over the country, including in your area. If you don't have time to attend one of our 9-week classes, learn how
I
to
just drove
handle
up
money
from
and get on
Mooresville
plan
this
with
morning.
Financial Peace University
You from that area? No, I just got a lot of buddies from there.
Make this the month
And it
you
was,
take control of
the
your
options
money.
were stay
Get
up
on
here
plan with
by
Financial
myself
Peace
and fish,
University.
which would have been
Go to
relaxing.
DaveRamsey.com
There's like, or go on a lake and
That's
do the whole
DaveRamsey.com
stereotypical American fourth. And I chose the stereotypical fourth.
There's Amanda and Patty. Hey, guys.
Hey, Mom.
So you like to fish?
Yeah, it's just one of the most relaxing things. And even, like, I hardly ever catch anything, but honestly, just casting out is, like, that's just relaxing.
And all the way up here to do your debt-free scream, huh?
Yep.
How much have you paid off?
We paid off a little over $82,000.
Mike, you talk like you're too old.
Okay,
And you're only 25.
Yeah.
During that time.
Like, get out and just cast the rod.
I don't want to say I've had a hard life because that's far from the truth. I just really, I don't know, I like to relax a lot more than I should.
There's Margaret.
But as the way to supplement our income
Margaret.
a little bit, I write curriculum and train teachers.
Okay, all right. So why the big spike in the income here at the end?
Well,
Got a promotion at work. Oh, okay. Yep. The sales are rocking. That's right. Okay, very good. Good. Well, congratulations. Thank you. Funny how that always happens when you start doing smart stuff at home with the money. It all worked out. Yeah. What kind of debt was the $82,000? A little bit of everything.
I don't know when this is going to drop.
Student loans, some medical bills.
Whenever there's a natural pause, I'll fade it down and play something else.
Okay. Yeah. And now you're weird.
Yep.
Do we usually get in the middle of this whole show?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah.
So we cut this show off?
Yeah, so the way it's set up, so you see that REM BACOC segment, that's a remote trigger that will pull their broadcast signal in and we'll play it through our station. So if those never get activated, then nothing will play. So typically how it goes, because what we normally start around this time, usually, right? So normally this is going longer than it should. But that will play, and then we'll go into commercial, and then we'll stop that from triggering up, and then move down.
Okay.
And the only way we knew
So,
how was going back.
there's Brandon.
Given up on before.
We tried to have Brandon on the show today, but he has to work. How are you watching if you're working, Brandon?
That's what I was just wondering.
Sounds like a good job.
Guys, we're a little bit late start this morning. Just hang in there. Facebook world.
Well, the nobility of your why you were doing it, all of a sudden it's for her. It's not just for selfish motives, so to speak. It's you're doing this for your kid. You're doing it for your kid.
Yep.
And you did it. Yep. So when you went back, I mean, did you go through like Financial Peace University the first time and flunked or what?
Well, we kind of.
We did the home study.
We did the home study.
Okay, you flunked the home
we
study.
We totally flunked, yeah.
All right.
I think, we.
Hopefully 3 minutes.
So you're going to do the Dave Ramsey thing and pay your house off early?
Yeah, what'd you do the second
Well,
time?
The second time,
I'm disobeying Dave Ramsey right now.
Alright.
But
We did the home study again.
I will follow some of his stuff. I mean, definitely.
Does it say like double up on your payments so you kill
Well, I
paying
want
so
to,
much
yeah.
interest and all that stuff?
I need to make more money.
She's definitely the CFO. Okay.
All right. Taking a break, he says. Taking a break.
The sales guy.
I'm gonna call Josh later and make sure you're telling me the truth here.
To the point where if I use my debit
I'm
card,
kidding.
now it just feels weird. Everything we do is in cash. She's the reason why we did it all. I mean, she's the one who just every month, every paycheck went right to the bank, did all of it. But it sounds like you were in there too.
Oh,
You
yeah.
just weren't doing the details.
I was doing the details. I'm not a details person, but I'm a great cheerleader.
Okay.
So I was very supportive.
You weren't dead weight being
So I thought radio spot, I thought the times of the shows and stuff was a lot more structured, or like it had to be at exact times and it had to end at certain times to get everything in.
This is, I'm not sure, because from what it looks like, the commercials that were playing before this segment ran about 7 minutes late. So at this point, I don't know what happened. And maybe, I don't think the Chamber of Commerce show happened today.
Yeah, it didn't. He wasn't here. Which normally he's in here.
Yeah.
Before us.
Like I saw Mike and he was like, did this show already happen? Did he leave early? I don't.
Why was standing there looking at you?
Yep.
Alright.
Very cool. Very cool. Did you sell anything big?
No, we didn't. We just really kind of buckled down.
You know, I turned on the radio yesterday, WATA, and like 9 and 11, there's nothing on.
Really?
Just static.
That's not good.
We started trying to get her to
I
stay
told
home,
Justin at
take care of baby.
the 4th
And so
celebration, I was
we
like,
used it
dude,
as our
it's
little
just static
proof of
today.
concept. You know, if
He's
we
like,
can't
ooh,
get
that's
through
not
this
good.
summer without
I can't think.
taking in any of that
Let's
money,
go back
then we
and
know
look
that we
as
can
to
replace
why.
your income if we can go down to rice and beans. And actually, you know, it just worked out perfectly. That summer, my mom's also in the education industry, and she had a lead for a position where Christian can write some curriculum and train some teachers, but mostly do it from home. And so we were able to replace a lot of her income without having to pay for any child care.
You're
And
good.
we were off to the races starting to pay off debt.
We're all
And that's
still
how it all started.
learning here.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Very well done. How's it feel now?
I wasn't trying to rush you, I was just curious how it works.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know we're already late at this point, and I don't understand why it's still going. Because this station in particular is supposed to be so structured on time. There's commercials that were supposed to be playing at 10:30 that haven't played yet.
Well,
So,
congratulations, you guys.
all right,
And
I'm gonna play the intro now.
with you,
Yes,
right?
we
So-
did. We brought Jackson and Kennedy, and Jackson's 6 and Kennedy's 4.
Right, very cool. And they got
Really
strong. And I'm
All right, so 30 seconds, y'all.
Oh, we're gonna start in 30 seconds?
Yeah.
All right, we're starting.
recovery talk. Help me help a friend.
I like it. You can call in and talk about your problems. They offer solutions.
All right,
That's what I
15.
was looking for. Recovery talk helped.
Have a problem? Know someone who does? Call us. 828
Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2.
This is Recovery Talk on WATA.
Hi, and welcome back to Recovery Talk. Recovery Talk is brought to you by Freedom Auto Tech. If you got your check engine light on, you got weird noise going on under the hood or under the chassis, give Freedom Auto Tech a call, 828-355-4434. That's 828-355-4434. And they'll get you right on the schedule and get your car looked at. I'm joined again by my good friend Chris Townsend, who is actually the manager of Freedom Auto Tech, and we just got through our first couple weeks over there. And how's business going so far, Chris?
It's going good. First of all, happy 4th of July to everyone.
Happy
Independence Day.
Yeah.
It's going good. We did still doing a soft open. I hope to officially be open in a little over a week. So things are going good. Business has been good, but we've got some openings on the schedule, so let's fill them up.
Awesome. And I saw the new sign out there right on the road.
We got the sign yesterday.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see it, too.
Starting to look professional. So, not that it wasn't professional before, just starting to look more
We're
professional.
getting there.
Okay. So, I hope everybody out there that's listening is recovering from a very happy and fun-filled 4th of July. My family and the program I work with, Freedom Farm Ministries, and Carry Some for Women, we were all at the Bethel Blast, which is held in the Bethel community, put on by Bethel Baptist Church. A lot of Bethel and a lot of explanation. Right in front of Bethel Elementary or Bethel High School.
At Bethel Park.
Bethel Park. So, but man, they do such a great job over there. And, anybody that may be listening right now that was a part of putting that together, they so many volunteers. I mean, what would you say? At least 1,500, 2,000
I was sitting thinking last night 2,500 people.
Really? Yeah. I mean, a couple thousand people.
Yeah.
And they feed everybody, and there's tons of food, and the beverages, the whole 9 yards. And
Live music,
dessert tent, a fireworks show that is right up there with any good fireworks show. So we always enjoy going out there and having that put on, and it's just a great time. From last show to this show, I told Chris about this, but it takes me about 3 or 4 hours to mow my lawn. And I was like, I really love doing this show, and I wanted to put my headphones on and download some podcasts about recovery, podcasts, anybody talking about it, doing something similar around the country. And I was listening to various ones, looking up who was popular on Google and whatnot. And I don't want to bash anybody, but I really didn't get any new ideas or anything. I really kind of walked away from listening to 3 or 4 hours worth of podcast, kind of disappointed. And
the one you sent me was painful to listen to.
Painful. Okay,
yeah,
so
I couldn't get through it. I hope we're not painful to listen to.
Well, that leads me to where I'm going. So I started to ask some close personal friends, even. My brother, who currently is living with me, he rents the bottom of my house out. But anyway, he's listened, and a lot of friends and family have listened. And I was asking for some constructive criticism, and I received it because we want this show to really get better, and whatnot. So I actually started kind of going off on my own and listening to some pretty deep intellectual conversation about recovery and psychoanalysis and things like that. And if you guys are seeing, there's a video right now on the Recovery Talk live feed here. Todd's posting it for us. There's a video that you've watched about 3/4 of it. It takes an hour and a half long. So I mean, it's but a guy named Jordan Peterson, who has become kind of like a bit of a hero in like these intellectual conversations that happen that you can. There's a lot of people kind of doing this, kind of like a new. I don't know how new it is, but it's like a forum where people are wanting to get into deep conversation about psychoanalysis, worldviews, religion, politics, how do all this stuff mix. He's a professor from Toronto, psychology professor, and he made headlines because of some kind of forced speech. He said he kind of stood against forced speech, and it had to do with LGBTQ pronouns and things like that. And he just took a stance, and they tried to shame him, and he ended up making him a pretty popular guy. So anyway, all that to say that another guy that I'm not really big of fans with, but Russell Brand, who is a comedian. He's been in some movies. You guys probably have seen him. But he's in recovery. He's been in recovery for quite a while now. And he actually wrote a book about recovery. And he sits down with Jordan Peterson, and he discusses his book with him. And Jordan Peterson has this book called 12 Steps in Life. It has nothing to do with 12 Steps of AA, but it's just hour and a half long conversation. If you can stomach a lot of big words and things like that, Russell Brand, like you said to me this morning, Russell Brand really likes to use some big words. Yeah. But they have a really great conversation about the 12 steps, especially the first 3 steps, which we had talked about. And I wanted to kind of, after I've listened to that now, I kind of wanted to add a little commentary on those 3 steps before we get into going further, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, up to 12. But if you have the time, be careful about downloading that podcast app on your phone. It's borderline becoming a new addiction for me, because I've realized that it's pretty easy. You can even listen to people talk at like a higher speed. So if you don't care about a weird sounding voice, you can get all the information half the time.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's pretty addicting, especially if you find yourself doing things like mowing the lawn for 3 or 4 hours. Yeah, you could really eat up that time pretty quick. I'm pretty much walking around the house with a headphone in one ear. I went to go see the accountant the other day, and she looked at me and she goes, "Please tell me you're not one of those guys now. You're not one of those guys now, are you?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And yeah, so it was a little bit embarrassing. But anyway, we're getting close to a break right now. 828-262-1567. It's 828-262-1567. That's a number to call if you want to call in and be part of the show. Our board guy here, Mike, he is getting us hooked up. We promised we were trying to get it all hooked up so that you could hear calls through Facebook Live, but I think we're going to have it remedied by next show. We're working on it. He's giving me the nod of affirmation, so I think we're going to get it done. So we'll be back after this break to talk about this show.
Do you prefer producer over board guy?
Yeah.
No, board guy's fine.
I asked the other Mike. What's Mike?
Kelly.
And he was like, "Yeah, whatever. I don't give a fuck what you call it."
All the foul language.
Yeah.
No, I'm not one for fancy titles.
Okay.
So
I'm the same way.
Yeah, I used to be a ditch digger, so all the fancy titles are a little much for me.
I just let an F-bomb go on Facebook Live. Don't condemn me, everybody. All 4 of you that are watching today. Yeah. And 3 of them are me, you, and Todd. So.
This break's going to be a little longer. I'm just trying to play commercial catch-up.
Yeah, no problem.
Downtown West Jefferson celebrates our mountain heritage with Christmas in July, Saturday, July 7th.
Did you know that dental care is essential for your pet?
Alright, so from what it looks like,
All can cause pain,
about
severe problems for your furry family member. Appalachian New River Veterinary
2.5 more minutes.
Any discomfort when it comes to your
Who's Matt Harris?
Matt Harris, there you go. Hey, buddy.
Hey, Matt. Happy 4th, man.
Appalachian New River Veterinary Associates today and ask about preventive dental care at ANRVA.com. That's ANRVA.com.
Rising Star Equestrian Center at the former site of the Yanalofsky Stables has a rich history and exceptional facilities. The new owners have returned it
To get better too, probably need to ask you what are blocks are normally, like our times that we need to, because it's like 3, isn't it? Don't we have like 3 blocks?
Yeah.
And it's like 5. It's like 5, 5, and 11. I think maybe something like that.
Typically, that's the case because normally, let me look through these commercials. So normally we start around what 10:35.
Yeah,
give or take. So if that's the case, the first commercial break would be, first segment should be 10 minutes because it should go to about 10:45. The next one after that, after commercial break, which you guys would then start around 48, would be to about 11 o'clock. So you have about 10-minute blocks. And then after that, I think you have 2 or 4 10-minute blocks is what it looks like, usually, from what I'm picking up from this log.
Okay.
That should be the case. Today's been very, very different for some reason.
We'll get through it. And we'll get better. I mean, we're already getting better. Matt Harris is watching.
That's right.
So they'd like to thank all of their past and present customers and employees for your
about a minute and a half now.
Okay.
future customers.
Matt and Hickory. Are you still in Hickory, Matt?
Has been a fixture in Boone for so long. They're located at 516 West King Street in Old Downtown Boone. And if you still don't trust GPS, call them at 828-262-5585 for directions or delivery.
So I learned something really scary that apparently, and this may just be in the state of Georgia, the alcohol intoxication level for boating in terms of getting a ticket is higher than when you're driving a car. And the scary part is you can't stop a boat like you can stop a car.
That's right.
So
that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I've had several friends get arrested for that, but I didn't know it was higher.
That's what I was told yesterday, and I'm a little wary as to whether or not that's true, but at the same time, I would believe that, just because of all the inconsistencies and everything. All right, about 20 seconds, guys.
That'll bring our temperatures down about 10 degrees. You can expect the mid to low 70s through the weekend. Also brings us some chance for some more rain, some more drenching.
10 seconds.
Had in a while. Something to look forward to, especially for your lawn.
Here we go. 4, 3, 2.
We're back with Recovery Talk. Hope, help and hope for the hurting. I got to get that right too one day. Recovery Talk's brought to you by Freedom Auto Tech. Freedom Auto Tech is there for all of your car repair needs. 828-355-4434. That's 828-355-4434. And they're ready to get you on the books for an appointment right now. If you want to be a part of Recovery Talk, 828-262-1567. That's 828-262-1567. So we went over the first 3 steps last week, and then I watched or listened to this podcast and wanted to talk a little bit more about them.
Yeah, so we're talking about 12-step recovery.
12-step recovery.
And we want you guys to call in if you've had an experience. Let's make sure we...
So some of the beauty in that conversation I listened to is that Jordan Peterson is a psychologist, specializing in behavioral psychoanalysis. That's what he did. So Russell Brand started to talk about the steps, and got really good input from Jordan Peterson, and he was talking about some of the major things going on in a human being during these first 3 steps. So let me just repeat them for you. The first step is you're admitted you are powerless over alcohol or, whatever addiction that you're admitting you're powerless over, and that your life had become unmanageable. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And then the third step being you made a decision to turn your will and your lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. So, people ask me all the time, how do you get people to get to the point where they realize they need help? You know what? I don't know how to give people humility. You know what I mean? But that's what really inherently is behind all 3 of these steps. You have to come to in that conversation. Peterson says this radical change of mind. Like something radical has to happen. Like this isn't just some kind of like, yeah, you know what, I think maybe I have an issue. I mean, these first 3 steps are someone coming to this basic understanding, like, look, life, I don't know how to live life. And one of the things about my life that's going crazy is that I'm abusing this substance. I obviously don't know what I'm doing, right? Like I said, the humility, kind of the admission, and other people obviously know this, and I don't, and other people do, right? And he was saying that once a person gets to that point, they're ready to learn, and your percentage of being able to get sober and live a different life just starts to skyrocket at that point. When you're at this point where, like, no, I'm admitting at 35 years old, I was 35 years old when I finally got to this radical position that, look, you know what, I have a degree in college, right? I've owned a business, I've done all this stuff, but you know what? I don't know how to live life and not stick needles in my arms.
Right.
So obviously someone needs to tell me what I need to know, and I finally had ears to hear. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the humility part, and they touched on that on the podcast too. I relate a lot of things to cars for obvious reasons. But if you're driving in a car and you think everything's great with it, even though it drives horrible, you're not going to take it and get it fixed. But if you recognize that, hey, I've got 50 things wrong with my car, and know that it's not the most perfect car on the road, you need to take it somewhere and get it worked on. Same thing with my person. So.
Right. And then, so using your analogy, a great analogy. So I'm driving my car, 50 things wrong with it, or I'm living my life and there's 50 things wrong with it. You wouldn't be, the ridiculousness of people that don't stay in this humility is that they're the person that brings it to the mechanic and says, hey, there's 50 things wrong with my car. The mechanic says, yes, let me tell you what's wrong with them, and then I'm going to fix them. And then you go in there and you start telling the mechanic how to fix the car.
What to do, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? This is what happens a lot of times when people don't stay within this humility. It's like, I see it all the time, and you being a part of the ministry, Freedom Farm, how do you get people to say, I don't know how you get people to stay in this, but you get people that call and say, hey, you know what, I really need help. My life's really terrible. I just got arrested, or I just lost everything again, blah, 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 right? So you say, okay, come on over here. We're going to give you some help. And then you start giving people suggestions, and then within 2 weeks of them feeling better, they suddenly discover, you know what, I don't need to listen to you anymore, right? I already know what I'm doing. And it's like one of the saddest things.
And it happens time and time. I talked to a guy last week from a surrounding county that left the program, and he said, I want to come back because when I was there, I had my family, my wife was talking to me, things were going great. As soon as I left, fell back apart again. It's because he thought he could do it. He lost his humility.
Yeah, so you're just the frustration of working in recovery. And you know what? It's not just, I'm not trying to down people. It's just like, if someone had the secret and how to break that, right? If someone knew how to break that in an individual, you'd be able to fix everybody. You know what I mean? But that's the thing, right? So this leads into another topic that we've discussed many times. And obviously we don't have a lot of people watching. I don't know who's out there listening right now. But this is a topic that everybody wants to talk about. They want to know, how do I get my loved one to understand they have a problem? And then that usually leads into a conversation about this concept of tough love. We've talked about it here before, but I kind of want to expand on that a little bit as it relates to people that have actually even maybe made that first admission or have gone through these first few steps, but then how they kind of can backtrack, and the need and necessity for loving confrontation and what you might say tough love, depending on how you define it. But we're getting ready to go to a break. 828-262-1567. That's 828-262-1567 if you want to be part of the show. All right.
AM 1450 and 96.5 FM. WATA.
So we got 30 seconds into the weather.
And then temperatures today to be in about the low 80s, but as we move Friday into Saturday, that's when we start to see some changes. The cold front's moving through, and that'll bring our temperatures down about 10 degrees.
All right. 15 seconds.
Also brings us some chance for some more rain, some more drenching rain that we haven't had in a while. Something to look forward to.
Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2.
We're back. That was a quick break. 828-262-1567. That's 828-262-1567. If you want to be part of the show, we're talking about tough love at this point, how it relates to the first 3 steps. Another quick plug, Freedom Auto Tech. If you have any problems with your car, check engine light's going on, you got to rattle something, you want to bring it to Freedom Auto Tech and get on the schedule. A new shop here in town, 828-355-4434. It's 828-355-4434. Give them a call. They'll get you fixed right up. So, you get people that, obviously when they've experienced some significant consequences, right? At that moment, it's kind of ripe for a person to do these first couple steps. It's like you're at this humble point, right? Admitted you were powerless, that your life had become unmanageable. Well, you know what? If I'm sitting in a jail cell, right? Or if I just got kicked out of my house, or if I'm sitting somewhere where I'm broke down on the side of the road, which is a common story I've heard. Broke down on the side of the road, not a dime in my pocket, or just even ran out of gas, and I can't even get to the next spot I'm going to because of my substance abuse. It's real easy to say, hey, my life's real unmanageable, right? Then this part where you came to believe that a power greater than yourself could restore us to sanity, and they're talking a lot about religious and secular view of this. You could think about this in a religious view and say, hey, you know what? There is this power out there that I know can help me, right? And obviously I'm a Christian and I have a very specific understanding of that. But they said it on a secular point of view. You could actually just say, hey, you know what? There are people out there that live lives, right? There are people out there that have gotten help. There are people that used to be like me that are no longer to me. So they obviously know something I don't know, right? So that's greater than me. So that's obviously something that I could learn, right? And then the third step, made a decision to turn your will and your life over to the care of God as you understand Him. And again, ripe in the middle of consequences, again, I would just attest, that's a pretty easy thing to go through. And a lot of times, and I think I fail, I have done this. You kind of look at these 3 steps, like once you've done them, and that's it. You kind of just move on with the rest of the steps. But that's just not true, is it?
No, it's not. It's something you got to do every day, I think.
Yeah, I would totally agree. And that's what leads into this. The point I wanted to make here. It's like I see people, you see people, you out there in the listening audience, someone watching, you may know somebody that has been to that ripe, point of humility, and then, a lot of times it's like you feel so bad for them. You fill up their refrigerator of food, right? Give them a tank of gas. I've even seen people get people jobs, and you kind of get them on the way, and then they're like, suddenly, they no longer have an unmanageable life, right? Suddenly, they've been bailed out of their situation, and suddenly they can go back to doing what they were doing, because really they haven't learned anything new, and that's really all they know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, then they consume all the gifts they were just given, and then back to the same point. It's a terrible cycle.
It is. It's a terrible cycle because what they're not doing now is they're not going back to these first 3 steps again. You got to make sense?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, my life was unmanageable. Why? Because I didn't have groceries, or I didn't have a job, or I didn't. Now that I have those things, now obviously I can manage my life. And I make this point to guys all the time. Debbie, I want to say hi. You're saying hello. There's Melissa. Hey, Melissa. You get guys here. I get guys, or I'm helping guys all the time. And okay, sorry, we're getting a weather alert or something. But the apocalypse has come. Anyway, you get people all the time, and they want to end their time quickly, right? Like, look, I signed up for a year-long program. We're a year-long program, the one I work with, the one you work with. Okay, year-long program, and then 3, 4, 5 months down into it, they say, hey, you know what? I'm good. I'm ready to go back. I'm ready to get on with my life. And they have this whole plan that they're working out, right? And they have not discussed it with you at all, right? They haven't said one thing to you. They just, and then a lot of times I get an opportunity to ask them. I said, so tell me, like, what's changed? Like, what about your life has changed at the root? And they say, well, I didn't have a job. Now I have a job, and
I'm not doing drugs anymore.
Not doing drugs anymore, and I saved some money and I bought a car, and I got I got a bank account, and I've learned how to balance a checkbook, and those are all great things. They're wonderful things to learn about responsibility, right? But then I always make a point. I was like, hey, you know what? I remember you had all those things, and then you lost them to addiction, and then you actually got those things back, and you lost them to addiction again, and you got them back, and you lost them to addiction. So that's what I want to know. Like, what's different this time that you're not going to lose it all again?
There's still a fundamental that's broken that they have to address.
Right. And usually that's when I get the blank stare, and they're looking at me, and they're like, well, what do you mean? Everything's good now, right? And this is when the overconfidence and whatnot comes in. And this is where, like I said, this is when they've kind of, a common phrase, they take their will back, right? Take their will back. Here it was where I was a person where I needed something above me to speak into my life or to show me the way. Now I've been able to position myself where I'm above that thing again, whatever it was, and my humility's gone. I now have self-confidence, and now I'm going to go and do my thing. And, unfortunately, with all the best intentions in the world, I see people in that situation usually, I would say 9.5 out of 10 times end up going right back to the same nonsense that brought them in. And then they look at me and they say, I have no idea what happened. If you get the opportunity to hear from them again, I have no idea what happened. And it's like one of the most frustrating things in the world. So
you've had guys come back 8 times before. I know one person in particular that's tried it 5, 6, 7, 8 times.
Absolutely. And you know what? I'm not trying to down anybody. I don't even know how many programs I went to. I mean, I went to a bunch of programs. And it kind of was the same thing, And you know what? I kind of wanted to throw this in there too. This is one of the things I don't like about 12-step, and this was reaffirmed. I listened to a bunch of those podcasts, right? It's like multiple, like 6 different ones. And then, you know what? One common thing that came through all of them, that they were all people that had like gone through this process, and it made them like so self-righteous. They were like talking down, and like they would hear about people's failures and whatnot, like what we're talking about right now, and they're like, oh, they just don't get it, And they're just like this, like, and it was just like it got pretty bad. And what I'm wanting to say is that, like, I'm not faulting anybody. I'm saying, like, I want this to get into this conversation about, so where does tough love come in here? Because this is like this thing that people like struggle with immensely. Loved ones, family, they struggle with this immensely, because you see somebody that tries to recover, right, and they start getting better. Sorry, we lost you for a second there on Facebook Live. Anyway, you see them. They come and they do a little time. They go back home and they get into this same routine. Nothing's different. They don't have any community. They don't have any fellowship, community, or service going on in their life. They're just going to work, paying the bills, living life, and then that monotony comes to, well, this is kind of boring, so I need to go ahead and spice life up a little bit. And we have a friend right now, right, that said, hey, you know what, I'm doing great. I got a job. My family's not. I haven't been this close to my family in a while. And they were going home quite often, and then next thing you know, they decided, hey, you know what would be a good idea? Let me hang out with all my old friends again, because I'm doing so well that I know that I'm going to be okay to do that. And what ends up happening? They're gone again. And so, again, I keep mentioning, and we're going to get into this tough love thing. Think back to what brought person to that humble point of what was going to happen, or to where they're able to admit and go through these first 3 things. What was the one thing that really got them to that soft point in their lives?
You have no more resources. You have to rely on somebody else for help.
And the word that's true. And the word I'm looking for is consequences, right? Consequences, having to face the consequences for your actions, right? So it keeps them in this spot. So I get people all the time that say, hey, you know what, my son has slipped up, or my daughter has slipped up, but they're really, really sorry. They told me they're really, really sorry. So I'm going to go ahead and buffer their slip up for them, and whatever it's going to cost me to pay, or whatever I need to do. And I usually lovingly tell them, like, look, I would advise against it. Okay?
They say, I know they just got kicked out of this program, but I'm going to go ahead and get them an apartment so they got somewhere to stay.
I've literally had that happen more times than the audience would probably believe. I mean, I've literally had people that get kicked out because of using the drugs that got them here in the first place, and their parents' response to it was they got them an apartment, they got them a vehicle, they got them their refrigerator full of groceries, and they put money in the bank, and they said, okay, you said you're really sorry and you're not going to continue to do that. I've just set you up for success. And what ends up happening?
Same thing.
Same thing. I mean, I literally know somebody currently that is looking for somebody to, what do you call it when you have a lease and you're trying to sublease? Yeah, sublease an apartment that was subleased to try to save their son from the consequences for his actions. And again, you know, this is tough to say to a parent because they're like, if I don't help, what are the consequences that I have to start thinking? And that's that fear that in parents' mind. They start thinking all these terrible thoughts, like, you know, they can be dead, they can be doing this, and you know, and I'm sympathetic to that very much. But you know, there's always, like I try to explain to people, there's a second side to that story. What if you continue doing what you're doing with your loved one for the next 20 years, right? You continue bailing them out. You continue to withhold the consequences for their life, and you keep enabling their trajectory, and then they end up dying anyway, right? They end up getting locked up anyway, and then you start having to be haunted by the fears in your mind. What if I had maybe pulled back? What if I had let them maybe go to jail and spend the weekend there instead of bailing them out? What if I had let them live on the street for a couple days and you know, continue to communicate with them and tell them how much I love them and how much I hope they get help, but let them make their way to get that help? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, my parents did it. I sat in jail for several weeks.
Several weeks.
Over a month, actually.
I don't know if I believe that Patty did that to you. If you're watching, Patty, I'm going to have to get confirmation because I don't know if you could do that. No, I'm just kidding. If Chris is telling me, I know that that's true. But yeah, so this is where I think the misunderstanding about tough love comes in, is this point. It's like, look, I got to let my loved one experience consequences for their action, right? So I'm going to do that, but then people usually go way over here and think that means that I just don't talk to them anymore. I block them on my phone. I don't ever have to have a conversation with them. If they ask for help, I don't have to. I'm not going to do anything. They're just like dead to me. You know that the whole like, you're dead to me, right?
Yeah.
And then that also will lead to a lot of times some pretty severe consequential conversations because you're so frustrated with them. There's a lot of, you know, putting your frustration on them by lots of yelling and screaming and things like that. And, you know, I'm guilty of that. I mean, these guys that I work with frustrate the crap out of me all the time. I'd say right now.
Me too.
And trust me, I lose it sometimes. They're just like, hey, man, you know, what is going on here, you know? Especially when I've, like, sat down and I've explained something, like, 4 or 5 times right in front of them, and they're looking at me and they're going, no, I don't understand what you're saying. I'm like, how do you not understand what you're saying? You know, how do I break through? Over a month. She said the confirmation is there. Over a month, she left you in jail.
She did.
She left you in jail for over a month. Okay, so it's 11:15. We're getting up here on a break. 828-262-1567 is the number to call if you want to be part of the show. Love to hear from you.
All right, so this one a little longer, maybe like 2.5 minutes, but coming up will be the last one. That's going to be the full time.
Bring us to 11:30.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew better to even ask to come get me at that point. I knew it was too far. And then one morning I called her to say, hey, and she said, I'm in the parking lot waiting on you. So.
Really?
Yeah.
She said that. Then one morning God told me it was time to get him out.
Yep.
I got a friend of mine whose brother, her parents moved him up here.
There's Rich.
He's probably like 19, 20, something like that. His sister's 21, good friend of mine, but he's got all sorts of problems, and it was just the point where he would I'm pretty sure he was doing drugs in Greensboro, and he wrecked his car, all that stuff. He didn't have a job. Like, all right, you're moving up here. They pretty much put all the responsibility, like, if you need anything, ask your sister. We're far enough away to where we can't help.
Yeah.
So, like, they went to Virginia to their lake house this week, and not only did she have to bring him his bus ticket so he could go up, but it was like one of those things where he's like, hey, can you buy me cigarettes? And she's like, you just got paid yesterday. How can you not? Do you not have any money? He's like, no, I spent it all. It's like, you got paid 2 days ago.
Right.
What the hell did you blow it on? And she's just like so fed up with it. I'm like, the moment you graduate, you get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Just go. You're way too young to be taking care of a kid that isn't even yours, essentially. And just the way it drains. I mean, I don't know. I feel bad for it. And this is, I guess, inherited might be the wrong word to use, since it's family. But
I think it is inherited because it is family.
Yeah, it's just, it's so sad though. Like, I feel bad for the kid.
Yeah.
Because this isn't, he's done this Lord knows how many times. But I feel bad for her because she's got to clean up the problem.
Well,
that stress can't be good for anyone.
She needs to have someone telling her she doesn't need to do that.
I'm telling her, I'm like, you don't. There's a bus system for a reason. He can pick it up.
Yeah.
He can walk. Yeah. Bicycles aren't really that expensive anymore. And there's buy-sell trade pages. He can get one. All right, we got about 50 seconds until we're back.
Okay. That's tough, man. Parents have dumped it on her.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
And she's trying to navigate college at the same time?
Yeah, she's got one more semester. So. All right, 30 seconds.
Chris, you stay away from Asher County cheese, right?
The cheese is on my diet.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, you're missing it right now. Yeah. Missing Asher County
10 seconds, y'all. Here we go. 4, 3, 2.
And we're back with Recovery Talk. Recovery Talk is brought to you by Freedom Auto Tech. If you have an engine light on, or if you have a rattle or something you can't figure out, bring it to Freedom Auto Tech. Give them a call, 828-355-4434. That's 828-355-4434. They will get you on the schedule and get you looked at and get you out the door in a very professional way. If you want to be part of this show, Recovery Talk, 828-262-1567. That's 828-262-1567. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love for you to engage with the topic today, which has turned into humility, tough love, staying in that position of, you know what, I don't know what I'm doing. I obviously need someone to help me or guide me or show me, and how easy it is for a lot of these people that are struggling. And I was one of those people. I don't know if you were one of those people, Chris, but you get to that point to where you start feeling a little bit better, and you know what, I got this now, and you go off and you kind of repeat the same thing over again. And the sad thing is a lot of that is a lot of that time of going and doing that is made possible by what you'd call enabling loved ones, people that don't know how to show how I define tough love. Does that make sense? And again, this is where we kind of left off. It's, you got people that say, okay, so it's time to cut my loved one off because they are not exhibiting humility and this desire and willingness to take suggestions from other people and do things they need to do. Okay. One of my friends watching that watches this show a lot. There was a time in his life, and he disagrees with me somewhat. I guess it's just the way I see it all, right? But he was having a hard time getting over a job and that he had one time where he did really well for himself, and getting what you would call like a menial job, like just a basic,
9 to 5.
9 to 5, minimum wage job, something, right? I mean, he was used to at one point making this, and he was not getting, and it was like, in my opinion, it was like this lack of humility, that for him to do that. And he had a lot of reasons why he wasn't going to do it. And again, like I said, he kind of disagrees with me, I think, with how all this went down. But like all I suggested for him was that over the next 2 weeks, I said, look, you don't even have to get a job. I said, just turn in an application a day for the next 2 weeks, and I'm talking business days, so that's 10 applications for jobs. There was plenty of places hiring, and all you do is turn the application in, right? And so like a week goes by, he's turning the application, nope, hadn't done it, Another week goes by, turning, nope. And when it came down to the end of the 2 weeks, I kicked him out of the program. Kicked him out of the program. And you know what? I love this guy to death. He's one of my best friends. And you know what? His life today, a week after getting kicked out, he got a menial job. And today he's 6 years sober. He's got a son that's about 3 years old. He does well for himself now in his current job. I don't want to give out too many details because I don't want people putting things together, But you know what? And I'm not saying that I was the starting point of all that. That he had to work through some things, and I wasn't a part of him working through a lot of things. But that was my little part to where, and I probably was a little jerky when I did it to him. But I didn't do it to him because I didn't care about him. I did it to him because I cared about him as much as I did. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And I think today that he knows that. I think he knows how I care about him. I still do, and that was the reasoning for doing. So that goes into this and you know what? We continue to communicate, and I continue to encourage him, and I continue to say, hey man, keep going on that path. Keep going. And this is the one part I think that people don't know how to navigate really well when it comes to the whole tough love scenario. It's like, okay, so I cut myself off to them. That means like no communication. That means I don't need to say anything to them. And you know what? It's because they've been battered so bad from the manipulation, and like, so you're afraid to, everybody's afraid to kind of like be vulnerable, right?
Right.
I don't want to tell you how much I love you and care about you because I think you've been manipulating me just to get stuff from me. That may be true, right? But you don't tell people things like that in order to get things back. Does that make sense? You love people, the whole unconditional love thing. You love people unconditionally as best as you possibly can. I don't think any human being can do that.
Not completely.
But that's if you're loving people just to get love back, then I think you need to go back and start thinking about what does it mean to love people? Does that make sense? So when parents ask me, how do I show this tough love? I'm not going to give them resources anymore. I said, yeah, but you know what? There's nothing wrong with you checking in with them on a daily basis, saying, how you doing today? Are you working towards? And all you got to do, once you start doing that and just knowing, I'm not going to get sucked into anything to help you with your life the way it is, right? No, I'm not going to pay your cell phone bill. No, I'm not going to pay your rent. No, I'm not going to put groceries in your. You know what? You know what I will do for you? I know that there's a food pantry over here. They're giving out food. Maybe I'll give you a ride over there. You want to ride over there? And you know what that is? It teaches them some humility. I mean, here's a person that now has to go to a food pantry to get food. And you know what? That's all part of this journey. And I can help them out with that. But you get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
I'm not going to make it to where you don't have to engage and find your own path today, because the path that you're on is a result of your choices. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we create our own problems. I mean, it's real obvious. We do it to ourselves. We just have to stay in that continued form of humility, like you said, to be able to accept help and not turn it away once we get our foot out the door, basically. Yeah,
there's that old saying that behind every great man is a great woman. Mm-hmm. You got behind great leaders in this world, they have great people around them. Do you know why that's true? Is that they're actually checking their decision making with people. I mean, when you are talking to people, and look, this is like not people that struggle with addiction. I'm talking about people that just are learning to live. I mean, you got powerful people. I bet you the president of the United States, even though people want to say he's like a dictator, a rogue, and all that stuff, you know what? He listens to people around him. I mean, we've actually seen how his own daughter can get him to change his mind about things, you know? Because you got to have some people. I'm not saying you got to have like a entourage, but you have to have somebody in your life that is speaking into your life. And that person needs to be somebody that knows you from the inside out. And, you know, that's why the fellowship of people that struggle with addiction is so good, because we all know all the little manipulative tricks and stuff like that we play on each other. So I know we're getting close to the end of the show.
We're still on step 3.
We're still on step 3. But I think that I wanted to get into the other steps today, but I think we did what we needed to do today, which was kind of go over it. And you know what hit me the most when I was listening to Russell Brand and Peterson, and you know what, if you're going to watch that, they don't even really get talking about the steps until about 15 minutes into the conversation. So if you want to fast forward to 15 minutes in, that's when they'll start talking about it. But you know what hit me was, you know what, it really needs to be talked about, how these aren't just like something that you do once and that's it, you're done. And you know what, when I was in 12-step recovery, that's kind of the way I viewed them. Like, oh yeah, I did that, I did that. Well, you don't realize there's all these little sneaky ways that I show that I'm not doing that,
Yeah, and it's something I want to fix one time and forget about and put in the back of our minds. But again, it's something we have to do every day. I mean, it's a fight.
It is a window into what I would call your belief system, right? I'm waking up today. Am I making choices, and as the way I'm behaving and acting, showing that I believe these things today? Or does my choices and my actions and my conversations actually fly in the face of me believing these things today? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Because a lot of times when you challenge people on that, right? So that someone come and tell you that you've been helping all along. Okay, imagine you've been helping someone for months, right? And then they come and they make some giant life decision. They come in and they just tell you about it. It's like, dude, like, who'd you talk to about before doing something like that? Well, nobody. It was just, it all seemed good. I'm like, well, didn't you want to have maybe somebody to speak into that situation? Well, I didn't think I needed to. That's when that's when people want to people always say relapse starts way before you actually pick up. There's the beginning of what you would call someone relapse. You can actually watch it happening as people become less and less humble and start living lives that show that they don't really believe these things. I don't need to turn my will over to this power greater than myself, because I've got the power now. I know better. I know what I'm doing. Does that make sense?
So you're talking about like seeking counsel of other people when making any type of decision, which you and I do on a daily basis. I mean, we bounce things off each other all the time.
Right.
Just what we do.
Yeah, I'm not saying that you got to like ask someone permission to order something at lunch, but what I'm saying is like, hey, you know what? I've got something that's causing me some conflict in my spirit here. That could be all kinds of different conflict. It could be like a romantic interest or a business decision or a life change or something like that, right? You should get someone you should bounce that off somebody. Hey, that's what I'm thinking about doing. And that just kind of shows you're a humble person. So we're getting close to the end after the 4th, and we had some things going on. So apologize if anybody was a little taken off, but I hope everybody's recovering nicely from a nice holiday, and we look forward to coming back here next Thursday. I'm trying to line up some new guests because I'm getting sick of Chris. No, I'm just kidding. That's okay. You can be in here with the guests too. I'm trying to get up some new guests and talk more about these steps. We will be back next Thursday.
That's weird. All right, good job, guys.
Thank you.
Say we're weird. Is that what you said?
No. You guys aren't weird. The system is.